So before our interview, you shared with me that you've been working for a tech company for the past 4.5 years. So, in other words, you live that kind of day job, quote unquote, life
I
as a
do.
composer. And I'm really interested in exploring this just a little more with you because that's been my life for some time now too.
Right.
And there's a lot of balancing and juggling, and there's a lot that goes into that I think a lot of like we don't really talk about
Right.
in academia or even among each other in our community of as composers. So can you talk about how you've been able to balance your non-creative work with this tech company with all the other creative work that you do? Because you also
Yeah,
teach.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so in some ways, it's just like I'm a glutton for punishment, and
Yeah.
but this is important too because I think I've had to learn that and learn how to balance against it. So, yeah, I mean, so when I moved to New Orleans, I did not have a job lined up. I was finishing my degree in Cork, and my wife was down here already, so I was moving down here, and you know, as I've mentioned repeatedly, I didn't feel I had the skills that most musicians leverage to get musician jobs, right? Like I couldn't go gig. I had a church choir gig, but that's just once a week. I was not at that time facile enough with music technology to do like sound or mixing or like audio editing. And the thing about like stringing together a freelance career, which is so viable in so many ways and for so many people, is that you can only do that if you have the time to do it. Like, and not just the time to do the work itself, but the time to set up that work for
Mm.
yourself. And so, and I didn't have that time. Like our financial situation was such that like I needed a job where I was making a paycheck every other week and like we had bills to pay and also like we needed healthcare, like we were aging
Right.
out of our parents' health insurance. So when I first got to New Orleans, I was working these two just very draining part-time jobs. I was working like 50 hours a week. And then right before the pandemic hit, I got this job at a tech company as a proposal writer. And I've been at this company ever since. And it was like a salary. It wasn't huge. When I started, I was making $40,000 a year, which is like nothing, but it seemed like the world when I started.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I also had healthcare and I had flexible PTO. And as the pandemic hit, it shifted to fully remote work and it's been fully remote work ever since. And it's been really interesting. I think so maybe I'll just start with the timeline. So I did that. I've since moved into a different role, but still in the same company. In 2021, I also started teaching adjunct at Tulane. And that was another like, this is something that I can cultivate for my future. Like, oh, I didn't do any TAing when I was in grad school. Like, let me take these
Mm.
courses and like intro to music tech, and that'll be my teaching experience. And that was a lot. And that was really where the balance question started to become an issue because during the pandemic, because I was working remotely and because no one was doing anything, I was in the very fortunate position to have financial security and time. So I actually wrote a lot during the pandemic. When I started teaching, pretty much all of my time and energy shifted to teaching. So I'm working a full time job during the day. I'm teaching two sections of a course each semester. And I basically didn't compose anything for 2 years. To me, it felt like the only thing I was doing was either improv gigs in the city, which were occasional, and it's like not doing it for the money, all the tens of dollars I
Right.
was making. Um, or I was lucky that I had a few performers who were continuing to play previous pieces of mine. And that was like a really that was a real challenge. And I learned a lot from that. And the crux of this was last year. While I was doing these things, I also copy edited a book. And for about a month, I was either working or asleep.
Yeah.
And that was when I was like, this is not right. Like, I think I had been trying to collect because I had always been in a position where it's like, you can't just live like freelance. You need to work, like you need to have an income. And I had always looked to opportunities to supplement that income or diversify it so that maybe I could move things around and spend more time composing. And what I realized was like, I'm preparing myself for a future that I'm going to live through if I don't change anything right now.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing about balance because in so many ways, working a remote job is good. Like you can get the benefits, and if you're working for a company that is respectful, and mine is, like I've always been very transparent about my creative work, and they've always been very encouraging of it. It does give you, in some ways, a lot of security that frees up your mental space to do the creative work.
Right. Yeah.
But if it's demotivating work, it could sap all that energy on the other side. Or if you're working too much, like you can't, it's often been the case for me where it's like, well, I can either exercise or I can compose. And it's like, I really would like to be healthy, but I would
Yeah.
also really like to have time to compose. And so I got to an extreme point in terms of time commitments and have started scaling back to somewhere that's more, I think, that enables me to actually be creating and not just be trying to set myself up for some future where I don't have to work as much and can create more.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I completely feel you. And yeah, I've struggled with like bouts of burnout myself.
Mhm.
Most recently this week actually, I kind of acknowledged like, "Oh, this feeling, I know this feeling. I know
Yeah.
what it is."
Yeah.
And kind of, the problem with me is that above anything else, I identify as a composer. I think
Right.
I wish that I could sustain an entire living with, all the financial security and the benefits and all that kind of stuff. I think as we all wish we could do that
Right.
as just being a composer, but the reality of it is that that's very, very rarely a thing for anybody. I mean, you
Right.
have to be I mean, even, we see Pulitzer Prize winners, like, they still teach at universities,
So
right?
this
So
is yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot too because I think, I'm about to start a PhD in the fall, and for most of my schooling, my assumption was like, well, even if I take time off, I'll go back and do a PhD and then I'll be a professor and I'll teach and I'll compose, whatever.
yeah,
And one of the things that I've witnessed being an adjunct is that, like, there are ways in which the structure of academia allows you to be creative, but in a lot of other ways, being a professor is also the job that's preventing you from
yeah,
composing.
right,
And I think, especially with how tenuous academia is and can be, and unfortunately increasingly seems like it is, I don't think there's anything wrong with, like, just like finding security in any job where you don't hate yourself, you
mhm,
don't hate what you're doing, and you have what you need to sustain your life. Like, I have a friend, Alexis Enyart, and the last time I saw her, she said something like, music can be a great career, but it's not always a great life. And
yeah,
if you start feeling like you have to make music your life, you might be in trouble
mhm,
because unless you're truly cream of the crop, most successful, like got all the opportunities coming in, you probably need something else to make your life a life.
yeah,
And sometimes that's financial, sometimes it's just like not always being in music all the time, and that I think is such a succinct way to put it, that like there's no problem with like cultivating a life that gives you the creative time to work but also lets you be secure. And it feels like increasingly security is like you need it.
yeah, and there is, as you alluded to, there is a liberation there where,
Yeah.
if you don't have to be cranking out commissions to survive, if you're surviving by means of something else that doesn't depend on your creative work necessarily, you have liberation in that you can take on the projects that you really want to take on. You can write the
Right.
kind of music. I remember when I got commissioned to write an orchestra piece for the USF Symphony Orchestra in about 2018, 2019. I was full-time salaried benefits at my job at that point,
Right.
and the conductor was basically like, yeah, write whatever you want. And I really had to sit down and think to myself, like, what what do I want to write? Like,
Right.
this is like one of those opportunities. You don't get to write an orchestra piece
Right.
that often.
Right.
It was other than the stuff the garbage orchestra piece I wrote in grad school
Right.
for like a reading, right? Like, this was my first
Yes. I
opportunity.
also have my grad school reading piece and my
Y- Yeah,
actual orchestra
yeah,
piece.
right. And so, it came down to like, I hope this will get played again, but I'm not gonna count on that. And I guess I don't care if it does. I'm gonna write the piece I want to write,
Yeah.
and that's what I did, and I'm very happy with it,
Yeah.
and it hasn't been played again, but that's okay.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of conventional wisdom in our community about how you spend your time. And look, there are limitations to doing this. Like I can't I can't just not show up to work because I have rehearsal.
Yeah,
It means I can't go to rehearsal or I can't do XYZ thing. But I think, actually living in New Orleans, I think has made this less of a problem because New Orleans as a city is not a place where people care about the work you do. Like obviously I also think of myself as a composer and as that being sort of my primary non-James or in addition to James identity.
yeah,
And New Orleans is obviously full of musicians, but New Orleans is just a creative city. Like when Mardi Gras comes, everyone is in a costume. And it doesn't matter if you are like an elementary school teacher or you work at a bank or you work for a like everyone has just spent the last month building some elaborate costume.
yeah,
And the best part of the city is seeing everyone's creativity and sharing in everyone's creativity. And it's a city where like it might take 3 meetings for you to get to the question of like, "So wait, how do you actually make money? Like what do you
yeah,
do?"
right.
Because it's just people don't care. And I think it's such a healthy I wish there were more places everywhere, but especially in the US where it's like you're not defined by your work, you're defined by your interest. And yeah, it's like I can very comfortably say, "Oh yeah, I'm a composer. I work for a tech company full time, but yeah, I'm a composer and I don't have any feelings of like insecurity about claiming that even though there have been times where I haven't done much composing."
Yeah, it would be fantastic for us all to acknowledge the realities that we live
Yeah.
in the composition community,
Yeah.
because again, I feel like there's never really a space to talk about it, and more often than not, I feel like people see me, doing the radio thing, like, "Oh, he does the radio thing," and it's like, "No, I'm a composer." Like, yes, I do the radio thing, but
Yeah.
that's kind of secondary to everything else.
Yeah.
So, anyway, not to be a bummer about it.
Well, I think I think that maybe to put a final positive spin on it is that like that sense of is it your career or is it your life? Like what are you cultivating? Are you
Yeah,
cultivating your career or are you cultivating your life? And sometimes you can do both, but um I've been trying to prioritize like I'm going to cultivate my life
yeah,
and I'm going to try to make my life something that I'm really excited about living in and that I feel comfortable living in both like philosophically and practically. And like I'm going to detach my happiness about my creative work from my productivity as a creator and attach it to the experiences I have as a creator. And if I'm having experiences that fulfill me as a creator, and I'll obviously try to pursue them in a way that I can share them and have people hear them, but I'm going to focus on being comfortable first.
thank you so much for tuning in to Micromaker by Loose Leaf Transmissions. We hope you enjoyed this brief glimpse into the inner workings of the creative life. If this resonated with you, be sure to check out the full conversation on Music Maker with Tyler Kline, a podcast exploring craft and process, philosophy and inspiration, and the honest, often messy parts of being an artist: creative uncertainty, purpose and identity, and resilience. You can find Music Maker wherever you get your podcasts or by visiting musicmakerpodcast.com.